Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final session of the day. We have Unlocking Governance from Burden to Benefit. So very excited about this one because I am actually quite intrigued to see how you can turn this into what I imagine is a tough gig. So joining us here today, we have me, but I'm not really going to be here for long. I'll just pop in and out, look at the questions. We have Karen, who is our corporate governance partner at RightSource, and we have Justin Hogg, who is the managing director for RightSource. Now, they are coming to us live from Brisbane. So any of you Brisbane folk, you've got some on screen. And basically that's it for me. But as always, I really encourage you to chuck in as many questions that you have, put them under the microscope, get as much out of this session that you can. So I'm going to fade off into the distance and hand over to Karen and Justin. Take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks so much.
Let's get the tech happening.
Always the trickiest bit.
Okay. I think we're away. So thanks, everybody. Today, what we wanted to take you through, just as a quick overview, is what is governance, because I think it's quite it's a term that we throw around a lot, but I think even myself, in doing this for a number of years, it took quite a long time for me to actually be able to explain this well to anybody, or what actually is governance. Why then does governance feel like a burden? How governance can make an impact? And then unlocking the governance benefits. So really trying to drive home how you can use governance to make an impact and value in your organization. And plus, we'll definitely have time for Q&A. We'll try and answer potentially questions as we go, but also at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. So happy for you to drill us with questions at the end. So I'll hand Karen to take us through what is governance.
Thanks so much, Justin. Well, I guess first this slide, you can see there's four rather big definitions of governance from some of the leading governance organisations. We've got Governance Institute of Australia. Look, their definition says it's a system of control, mechanisms that hold people to account. It's made of elements, including risk, compliance, and administration. The AICD definition is similar, still systems of control, but leaning more on the relationship side of thing and including the goal of shared understanding, which is important. The ACNC, where most of us live in non-profit world, focuses on practices and procedures and also understanding of roles. And the ASX, not surprisingly, is far more into the systems of controls and those rules. At RightSource, look, we definitely understand these definitions and we certainly respect them. But we feel like for us, governance is more about what governance can do for you. So for us, we think of governance as creating alignment between people and purpose. So there it is. The RightSource way. Before we dive more into our experiences of governance as alignment and why we think that way, look, I want to just go back to the topic for today, and that is unlocking governance from burden to benefit, and just start with the awkward questions about why governance can sometimes feel like a burden. So if I could just get you all asking just in the chat, if you like, what is it that you think of when we speak of governance? So what are the mechanisms and the tools, the artifacts that the organisations can use to hold people to account?
Policy is the first one that pops up.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Perfect. So these are the things that manage the various elements of governance, such as risk and compliance and administration, policies and procedures. That's perfect, Wendy. Yeah. And so while that's going on in the chat, I would just like to empathise with everybody out there. From a company secretary point of view, like Justin and I, we attend many board meetings and committee meetings. That's what our job is. And we can tell management are sometimes just dreading at every meeting that the committees or the boards that govern them are just going to ask for just that one more thing and put something else on their plate to do. For example, do we have a policy on this? Do we have a register for that? If not, is it possible, can we have it by X date? And, sometimes they're not necessarily thinking audit, oh, that's a nasty one. Not necessarily think about what other things that you've got to do. I mean, everybody's got a job to do, right? And I'm not saying that, that these things aren't important. They certainly are, but I just wanted to express that, no wonder it can feel like a burden. So if you just show the next slide, Justin, some of the things that we've come up with, and these are the things that we deal with every day as to why we think governance can be seen as a burden. But yeah, I'd like to pass on to governance to Justin now and have a think about, how can we change our thinking in that respect?
Yeah, and I suppose it's very interesting when you start looking at governance and, well, how can it actually make a difference? And in our experience when working with not-for-profits especially, it tends to be good governance that helps not-for-profits succeed and not just luck. So what does that mean? So governance encapsulates things like strategy, like having a clear plan on where you're going and how to get there, what the path looks like. Your risk management process, which is really then about understanding on that journey that you are towards that purpose or goal of the organization, what are the boundaries and what are the things you should look out for along the way to make sure you don't trip up along that path to achieving your purpose, operationalizing that strategy. And this is then where governance really starts, I think, to have an impact that sometimes goes unseen, is that it's creating this rich conversation within the organization. So when you understand where you're going and what the risks are along the way, and that message becomes shared, you start creating things like a shared language within the organization and also a shared understanding. And that richness of that understanding effectively unlocks that empowerment of people, allows people to be proactive because they're not second guessing or shouldn't I, like, if they're clear on what we're trying to achieve, people are more willing to step up and go, well, okay, well, I know this is a problem or this needs to get done. I will get up and get it done. I don't necessarily need to ask for permission because it's already implicit in what's been done. We've already given you the permission. And then having that process, again, this comes back to that conversation of people talking, people sharing ideas, but that monitoring process is very important in terms of the risk, the strategy, making sure the direction stays the same, making sure we're all also pushing in that same direction. And that only happens with that shared understanding. So that, I suppose, is, to me, why governance matters. We can spend a lot of time actually talking about how this works, but we'll probably say that more towards the end. And yeah, so that's, whoops, quick though. I'll hand back to Karen to talk a little bit more around our sort of value proposition for governance.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Justin. So this slide comes from the International Integrated Reporting Framework, and it's just a way of thinking about, how the things that go into an organisation, what happens within an organisation, and then how it translates out into value on the other side. So this slide provides examples of 6 types of capital. So as CFOs, you're probably all thinking that, that financial gain, those profits and that increased financial position is something that you all need to care about. But if we have a think about it in a little bit more of a systems thinking type of way, you can see that there's other value that's created by an organisation as well. So you've got the manufactured capital, that's the products and the services that are produced, the knowledge that's accumulated in that intellectual capital, the people that are involved, there's capability, skills, experience, loyalty, good friends, all of those things, the social and relationships, the networks that we build, and the natural capital, the environment and the system that we operate in and how we affect that and can improve that. So yeah, governance touches on all of those things. It does it through culture and purpose. It does it through your strategy and business model, governance, risk and opportunities, your processes and practices, and performance management, just to name a few. I guess the how of this, and I think this is on the next slide, and these are the things that, this is where I start to get excited. If we think back to those mechanisms and those tools and artifacts that we looked at earlier that seem really burdensome when we have to put them into practice, here are some of the ways that good governance is worth doing. So yeah, so I had to think about those things and thought, what drives what? And just a couple of examples, like your risk register, it creates information for decision making. It gives you boundaries around, how your organisation should be operating. Your compliance framework creates ethical work practices, and it gives you on-time reporting. Your clear communication of mission and vision, that means that you've got values-driven action in your organisation. The clear policies and procedures, like Justin said earlier, we create shared understanding of how we do things around here, and we create efficient and effective ways of working, and the list goes on. So just to sum up, the real benefits of good governance: look, it hedges against organisational weaknesses, improves reputation with stakeholders, creates efficiency and effectiveness, and it drives an organisation towards its goals.
Yeah.
So I think I'll just hand over to Justin for the next little piece.
So as we sort of get into this bit, so now how do we unlock some of this governance stuff? So I think we've given a bit of an overview there of what governance is, what we're talking about when we're talking about governance. Really then, how does the magic happen? How do you take a framework, a shared understanding, richness of conversation, and how do you create value out of that? How does that make a difference to your organization? 4 things on this slide are probably the key aspects of it. So I'll just touch on them briefly and probably share an example as well. So being curious is very important for us. It's one of our values, is curiosity. But I think diving into and understanding why you're doing something, like what is the purpose of the activity that you're undertaking, is much more, helps unlock some of that value. Whereas if you don't look at the why, you'll tend to treat it like a compliance task. So it's just ticking the box. If you don't understand why you're ticking the box, you're not getting any value out of it. And it is a cost then. It becomes a cost to the organization. So the first step is being curious. The second one is then moving it a bit further into that, and that's leaning into the conversation. So if you have to do something, or you feel that there's a requirement to do something, or there's a process, lean into it. Do the process. One of the things that we often see in organizations is they've got policies there that they never use. Now, our advice to people is if you're not using the policies, get rid of them. Like, there's no point having policies you don't use. But if you have a policy, lean into it, use it. And if it doesn't work, change it. Make it live for the organization, because then it becomes an artifact for the organization that it can lean on, and it can ensure that consistency of approach. It can be also part of the intellectual property of the organization, because over time and that refinement of the policy, you know what works. And by capturing that and then using it and continuously using it, that helps refine it and becomes valuable to the organization. And that's the continuous improvement approach leads onto that too as well, is that continuing to refine and not settle with governance. Not that, I suppose, is that difference of that leaning in allows you to do it, is that if you're trying to make it better all the time, you're using it and it's live. Whereas if you're seeing it as compliance, you don't want to, like, I know what it's like when you do compliance work, you don't want to do it. You want to do as little of it as possible. So it's a very different mindset to doing as little of it as possible to doing actually more of it, if you like. And the last point, there's help is available. So if you're not a governance expert or you want to understand more, there is definitely people out there like VITALS, like others, who are definitely able to help unlock some of that thinking and show you the way to gain that value. Now, I suppose one of the stories I was going to share as an example was where you can change something that feels like compliance to potentially something that might add some value to your organization. Recently, we had the related party transaction requirements come in through ACNC that lifted up the level of related party transactions that needed to be reported. And you can almost hear a collective sigh, like, oh, great, another thing we have to do when that was announced. But if you take that effectively what looks like a piece of compliance and go, well, how can you use that in your organization to create value? So first of all, yeah, it's been curious. Well, why do we talk about related party transactions? And the heart of it goes back to direct obligations or directors' duties. So it's really making sure that none of the board inadvertently or on purpose even use their position to their own advantage. And so by being transparent on any related party transactions, both for the board and also for key management personnel, if you're transparent on that, it helps reduce the risk of someone inadvertently doing something for their own benefit or fraudulently doing it. And it helps just by them creating that level of transparency. It allows everyone to feel more comfortable about what's going on. And then if there is a related party transaction, you're not finding out about it when you're doing the audit and going, well, what's this? Like, we didn't know about this. Or maybe you did, but you forgot about it, or it was just mentioned in passing. So it allows you then, as a governance professional, to build that into the board, the normal processes of the board to look at related party transactions and capture those. That will then also make the audit a lot easier when you come to it, because you've already got the information there. It's already done. The other thing then, it allows you to start thinking a bit more. So, well, related party transactions, how do we value some of those? Because some of them are donations. Now, technically, you may not need to disclose them, but as a good auditor will always say, you can't tell me it's not material until you know whether it's material. So valuing some of that donated stuff starts coming into the picture as well. So if you start valuing some of the donations you get, you actually may realize that, okay, your reported profit might be 10 million, 15 million, but then you're getting another $5 million worth of donated goods. Well, that actually makes you look bigger because you are bigger. It also has an impact on, well, then what's the percentage of admin costs we're paying? Well, if your revenue's higher, the admin costs are lower. So all these things can help present your organization in a better light. Just because another piece of compliance is being brought in, you can then turn that around and make it something that's valuable to your organization. So that's, I suppose, an idea of how we think about things that come up in terms of a governance or even a compliance space. It's not about how do we do it as cost effectively as possible. It's how can we do it that adds the most value to the organization.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry, I was going to say, so in a bit of a summary in terms of this is how we think of governance within a good governance. It does of a not-for-profit, a successful not-for-profit consists of three really core things. Purpose, everyone would be aware of that. Your purpose, you're very purpose-driven organizations as a not-for-profit, which makes them such a joy to work for and with. Your people, I mean, the people in the not-for-profit space, they're there for a reason, they're there for the purpose. And those two things are usually very clear and upfront and obvious for most people in a not-for-profit. Third factor for us is the governance factor. And this diagram, this Venn, tries to explain how these three things interact. And you've got, so when you look at your purpose and your people, when you combine those two things together, that's where your care and your vision come from, where your passion in the organization, the mixture of purpose and people. When you mix purpose with governance, that's where you get your strategy, where you get your dreams turning into plans, so that you have a structure and a way forward and a methodology of achieving your purpose. And then when you mix your governance with your people, that's where you get your values, your evidence, or this is how we do things around here, this is the boundaries, and that allows people to work in a consistent way and work together in a more effective way. And in combining all those things, that's how we see when we work with not-for-profits, that governance actually brings purpose and people together, creates that alignment, and really creates more impact, or allows an organization to make more impact. So that's really the bulk of our presentation today. We're really happy to open it to the floor and start taking some questions, if there is any. I don't know, Thursday afternoon.
It's been quiet, hasn't it? I think you've just stunned everyone with all of your excellent knowledge. While we've got you there, oh, why's my video not? Let me come here. We've got a lot of you on there. Surely there are some questions. Anything? Everyone's being shy.
I've actually got a question. So I'm just curious, like we've got a lot of CFOs here obviously today, and I'm kind of expecting a fair few of you will be company secretaries. So if you're a company secretary as well, can you let us know?
Yep.
One?
The one company secretary.
No. They have a quiet bunch today.
That's okay.
No. From
Good.
Kiralee. No. Lots of
That's
no's.
really interesting.
Interesting. That's good.
Part-time.
Part-time, yeah.
Yeah.
You wear many hats, don't you, sometimes?
Mhm.
Former, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, Valerie's a COSEC. Are we failing to lean into a governance conversation? Yeah. Accidental secretary.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think that when I talk about that dynamic earlier between, you know, management and the board and the company secretary, it feels like a little bit of a triangle. Like for Justin and I, we work with more than one board. We work with a number of clients, and we get to see different dynamics. And, you know, some of the relationships between management and board, you know, can be really proactive and successful. And we see other relationships that are a little bit more strained. And that comes down to the personalities that are involved, not just on the board side or the committee side, but also on the management side.
Mm.
And like from our point of view, we tend to see that management can be sometimes very defensive, and rightly so, very proud of the work that they do and the things that they have got going on. And they sometimes feel like the board doesn't, or the committees don't understand exactly what they've got on their plate. And so they see the meetings, the interactions with those boards and committees to be, you know, sometimes a bit of a pain in the butt, something that interrupts their real work and the stuff that has to go on, taking them away from their core purpose and their core roles. And I'm not sure if any of this resonates with any of you there. I'm sure all of you are reporting to a board or a committee at some level. Yeah. So, so there's a question about
Come through actually. Oh, I don't know if you've read it, but I'll read it out for everyone who's not watching the chat. What are some suggestions if, I'm working in a smaller NFP and I'm sort of drowning in governance and I can't see even how to form a functional board?
Wow, that's a big question.
I like this question.
I think I'll let Justin have that one, but I'll just finish off because I was answering a question before about should we be leaning into governance. And the answer is yes. So the what you can do about it as somebody who is struggling with that board and committee relationship and feeling like it's a burden, the things that they're asking you to do, is to actually be proactive and pull out some of those important governance pieces that you can tell that are needed and put them forward and offer them up to your board before they start asking you. So if they see you as proactive, then they're going to start feeling comfortable and assured that you are taking care of the governance business that you should be taking care of. So that's one way you can lean in. And now I'll let Justin answer this question.
Yeah. Small NFPs is always a challenge because you still have a rather large amount of governance to do. There's a couple of aspects here. Is one, don't get hung up on best practice. Like I saw another comment there, the ICBA has some great resources, and it does. But what you can get caught in is trying to do everything. And like, even if you look at the ACNC best guide on governance and your not-for-profit checklist, there's a whole heap on there. And to say that as a small not-for-profit you're going to get all that done is just unrealistic. Or you'll spend all your time on governance and not actually run the organization. So my advice is always that take more of a continuous improvement approach. Just what's one thing you can do better and just do that one thing. Once that's done, look at the next thing you can do better. So don't try and take the whole thing off. And it's okay not to be best practice. It's okay to just be getting by in terms of like you've probably your core document, your board charter, maybe if you've got one, like start there and just slowly build on it, and over time you'll get there. The other aspect with boards, especially, is when you're first starting off, is that we haven't got a skills-based board because we just have to accept anybody. I think part of the thing you do when you're curating a board is trying to be patient in terms of who you take on. So once you take someone on, it's much harder to get rid of them. It's the same as an employee. Take your time to hire, but as soon as you got the wrong person, you try and get rid of them as quick as possible. Same with directors, even for the small not-for-profit. Like there's a lot of free resources you can use to advertise to get interest in directors who want to volunteer. So you've got Seek Volunteer, which is free, Governance Institute, which is free for not-for-profits, AICD, if you remember, is free, Women on Boards is free, ICDA is free. So there's a lot of places you can put in, and then you've got social media. So there's a lot of places you can put out the message, and really you want to take your time in finding the right person, which can sound painful, but if you get the right people, it can make such a difference.
Yeah. And then another way you can, I guess, like help control when you're starting up and you're not sure of, what governance to implement first, is actually think about like a work plan of governance. Like Justin said, you don't need to do everything all at once, but you might feel more comfortable by having a plan. So say for the first quarter, you might want to achieve, your risk register is really important. Get your risk framework and policy in place. That's a big tick item to do, and it's not a small job either. That's a great one that you need to do, because you'll find things when you start looking at your risk register and start talking about those things, like where your organisational weaknesses are and what other things you need to bring in pretty quickly to help sort out those issues. Your compliance register is another one. So those, probably the early starts, and then later on, maybe you start thinking about, all of your other policies and procedures, but you don't have to, do them all at once. Put a plan in place over the next 12 months or even 2 years to start getting those things in place, and just like do what you can when you can, and reach out for help, like not just for governance help, but there's like people that can help you with policies and procedures. There's people that can help with risk registers and compliance registers and things like that. So, companies are looking for remote projects to help NFPs with. Source a skilled person to get those foundation docs in place for you. That's excellent advice. Thanks, Sally. Yeah.
One of the things to be aware of is a lot of the larger legal practices have to have a level of pro bono work to be able to tender for government contracts. So from that point of view, reaching out and asking some of your, you might know of or have a relationship with the legal firm, but even if you don't, even asking if they're interested in, if you're able to apply for some of their pro bono services can help maybe tick some of these things off for free.
Yeah. There's been some great discussion and some good questions. So thank you very much, everyone.
And how could people get in contact if they did have any more questions or, looking to work with RightSource?
I think they could reach out through LinkedIn, might be the easiest way. We're very visible there. And Justin does a lot of videos as well online and through YouTube. So feel free to, he'll have some links there to connect with us through those channels, and more than welcome.
We also do a monthly rendezvous as well, which is actually on tomorrow, but we do a monthly rendezvous where people can just rock up. It's free. Tomorrow we're talking about conflicts of interest, and it's just a discussion. So
where's that
at? It's on Humanitix if you want to look it up. So
right, great.
Or contact us and we'll put you on the invitation list, definitely. Yeah.
2 questions here. Oh, well, Sally has another great piece of information. Check out the policy bank in our community's ICDA, or free templates, huge range. And Mark has he's quickly got in with a final question. Who would you recommend to help draft clear and concise policy and procedures?
Us, we're great. No. So
we do some of that work as well. Yeah, but I guess it depends on the type of policy and procedure, but we're more than happy to have a conversation. And if we can't help you, we can point you in the right direction.
It's always good. I mean, policies, you want to get someone who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because you want it to be a policy that's workable. So it's always finding someone who, one, knows the area, but also has time to look at your business and understand your specific needs as well. So so as an example, ICDA, great policy bank, absolutely. But that's the starting point. You still
Yeah.
need to refine those things. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like different organisations, different industries have different needs. Like we work with aged care and education, and like, yeah, it's all very highly contextual. So you need somebody who's, you know, knowledgeable in the area that you're in.
Okay, great. Well, guys, thank you so much. It's been, Sally, believe it or not, some people love policy and procedure.
Yes.
Can't wait to get into yours to adapt templates to suit you and your org.
Yes, that's true.
Sally sounds like a great addition to your team. She loves it. Thanks, Sally, and thanks to everyone that jumped in and had questions and got involved. Karen and Justin, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate sharing your knowledge and experience and insight. Which brings us to the end, the close of the not-for-profit summit. Thank you, everyone. I know not all speakers or not everyone is on here, but again, just thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope everyone's getting to walk away with some interesting pieces of knowledge and information and things they can implement. All right. Have a good day all, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Thanks.